Hello, and this is a book review and some interesting ideas I found in this book, Other Minds. In general, I'll start with like a short review. I'm probably going to give this book 3 stars out of 5, as there is some not that much interesting information, too much descriptions of things, of like underwater things that usually I wrote even a note on it that it will be better having it as a video, because it's really hard to transfer those ideas in a book. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't really like this book. So again, there is some interesting ideas. The first part is just a lot of descriptions. The second part is more philosophically or psychologically. So it was a little more interesting. But overall 3, I might even give it a little less, because there is some good parts, but there is some parts that are just boring for me, of course. If you like those stuff, more power to you. Let's look to the notes. E. coli have a sense of taste. They can get away or towards a chemical. It's interesting. So they have some sense of taste, which is like, okay, good to know. Simple life forms sometimes have light detectors as they use it for energy. However, the detectors are simple, so they either going towards the light or away from it. Which is interesting to see that even simple life forms can still have that sense of light. But you see, they only have a very simple sense, so they only go towards or away from it, so that's their sense of energy. So it's interesting to see how different life forms see the world in some way. Camera eyes are developed, and as a result, there is a need for smart processing power, and a lot of it. But that's one of the reasons I like that theory of why we have and other animals have a larger brain, and why the brain has evolved rapidly is due to the development of camera eyes. So you have much more sensory information going on, and you have to process it, and you need a lot of it. Scavenging, which led to hunting, required more movement control and processing. So the way it started is first of all scavenging. So someone is already dead, either his own species or other species started eating that. But after a little while, they started. I don't think he's talking about it, but it could be. I just thought about it. Is that it could be that someone is dying, in a process of dying, and then someone is already starting eating them. So that combat already started a little bit, and then with time it just got evolved, and some species just learned how to hunt. And what it says is that hunting required more movement and control and processing power as well, which some animals do not have. Octopus appears to have awareness of captivity, as he understands he is in one place and humans are in other place. They also try various ways to escape. So they have some sense that they are in captivity, as they try to escape first of all, and they understand that the dynamics in some way between humans and themselves. A special device for the blind allows them to feel the environment via electric shocks or such. What's interesting is that with time, humans or other animals can feel the world, actually feel the world. That's what I have like the feel here, like they feel the world more through all kinds of sensory information, which is interesting. Each of the pigeon eyes seeing 2 different views that are not related or connected. Interesting to see, like, they have total different views. So they see like 180 or 180 or something like that, but they're not connected. So our eyes are connected into one pictures. They see a total different view. How does it feels to be a frog? Feels like nothing, since the sensations are not translated into subjective experience like we have. So as humans, those sensory information, those sensations are translated into subjective experience. But for a frog and for more animals, they do not have it. And of course, it's a theory, but that's what he claims. According to one theory, consciousness is something that brought up to the centralized working space. So this is one theory. Consciousness is basically something that we need to work on it. So it's like, we have a problem, let's work on it. It's like some kind of a committee. So this is what the conscious brain is all about. The octopus's arm could have a feeling of their own, and they might guide themselves rather than a conscious activity. They have some evidence to support that, of course. The arms are having their own will in some way. So they don't have like a central control. Most, of course, the octopus can control it, but in some way, they have a will of their own. Side note, this book would be much better as a video than a book, as there is a lot of descriptions that would make much more sense as a video. And I spoke a little bit about it in the review part. There is a lot of descriptions. I think as a video, like a National Geographic video, would make much more sense. It would be much more easier to understand, especially as I'm not that familiar with octopuses or cuttlefish, etc. I don't know those animals so well, and seeing them usually helps much more than trying to describe that through words. As a side note. Paddlefish or cuttlefish, maybe I did a mistake, which change his color based on his environment, does not have color vision, which is really interesting. So they don't see colors, they see only like black or white or something like that, but they still change color based on the environment, which is like, all kinds of theories how it works, but it's interesting. The skin of an octopus feels light and changes accordingly. In other words, the skin sees light. So that's the octopuses. And apparently the skin itself has those receptors or sensors, and because it's not with his eyes, the skin itself can feel and change accordingly. Inner dialogue could be used as executive functions or experiment with speech. That's what inner dialogue, it's like what you're talking to yourself in other words, could be just as executive functions. It's like to be focused. Okay, this is what you do to learn blah blah blah, or also to experiment with speech. It's something we want to do. We want to say, how to say, when to say. So it's also experimentation in some way. Another theory is inner dialogue is system 2 work. In system 2, there is like a reference to the book Thinking Fast and Slow. There is like system 1 and system 2. System 1 is the intuitive, automatic thoughts. System 2 is the conscious, deliberate, mathematical brain. And the inner dialogue is system 2 working. This is like step by step, conscious, rational, and rigorous. So that's the inner dialogue. Again, another theory. According to one theory, the conscious mind used when we are in a novel situation. So we're in a novel situation, we're more likely to use that conscious brain. Be like, oh, what's going on? Executive functions, system 2, whatever you want to call it. But when you're in a novel situation, we're more likely to use it. According to one theory, aging is a result of short-term good mutations that eventually starting to decay, similar to retirement. So what's going on with aging? It's short-term, that they started as a good thing, but eventually they start to decay and problems are arising, similar to retirement. So right now it's everything is good, but eventually things is going downhill. What decides if a species reproduce big or small quantities is dependent on when is the dangerous part of the species' life. If it's dangerous when they start, it's better have many. So that's one of the reasons because like mosquitoes, they're like reproducing like large numbers versus elephants, for example. It's like one every, I don't know, few years or something. The differences is when is the most dangerous part of the species' life. If it's right on the start, you might have like as many as you can, like turtles, for example. It's like they have a lot of eggs because most of them get eaten right away by when they get out of the sand. So the mother puts her eggs deep into the sand and they cover it. And when the turtles come out of the egg, they go out to the surface and run towards the water. And then most of them are getting eaten. Most of them are getting eaten. This is just Google talking, disregard. So most of them are getting eaten by birds. So that's one of the reasons. So when it's that dangerous, it's better to just reproduce as much as you can. But if it's not dangerous, there is no problem. There is no reason to produce so many. Interesting evolutionary idea. According to one theory, the reason octopuses have a large brain even though they live short life without much socializing, it's because their ancestors. So usually when animals have short lifespan, they usually tend to have smaller brains, and animals that have social life usually have bigger brains. So and like humans, apes in general usually have larger brain, dolphins. If you have a lot of social life, you usually need a bigger brain because it's a lot of complex calculations. But octopuses have neither. And one of the theories is because of their ancestors that did live longer or had a shell, I forgot what the whole thing is, but because of their ancestors, they just developed that bigger brain. In other words, octopuses did not need bigger brains. They don't use it in some way. They don't need it. What's going on with bees colonies is that a lot of small stressors accumulate and eventually the colony fail. So it's similar to the aging idea, is that a little small things that just accumulate, a little small problems, because there's a lot of problems with bee colonies these days. So problems are accumulate, a lot of small stressors are accumulating, and eventually it's just like too much. It's like the straw that broke the camel back. Similar idea. It's just a lot of little things, and then it's collapsed. The straw, it's like the thing that broke his back. Forget. Anyway, that's the idea. And that's his for notes. Again, this book is like probably 3, not super great. There are some cool parts. If you really like octopuses and you want to listen or hear about some other minds a little bit, even though I would like it to be more about the mind and consciousness, I would like it better than being very technical. So it could be good, but probably like 3 stars again. There is some interesting evolutionary ideas, which I always like, some evolutionary theory, but again, could be better. That's it. Thank you.